There is a certain kind of discipline that makes people uncomfortable. Not impressed. Uncomfortable. You've seen it before. That one person who wakes up at the same time every single day. Who trains when others are tired. Who reads when others scroll. Who keeps going long after motivation fades. People don't usually praise them. They say something else. That's not normal. And they're right. It's not normal. Most people live in cycles of excitement and collapse. A surge of energy. A week of effort. Then silence. A reset every Monday. A surrender by Friday. But there exists a different system. A deeper structure of behavior that doesn't rely on mood, hype, or inspiration. It relies on something far more unsettling. Identity. Daniel was a software engineer. Smart. Respected. Financially stable. From the outside, everything seemed fine. But inside, he carried a quiet frustration. He could not maintain a habit longer than 2 weeks. He joined a gym, lasted 1 month. Started journaling, stopped after 9 days. Bought self-improvement books, read the introduction, then forgot them. Every attempt followed the same rhythm. Monday, absolute conviction. Wednesday, internal bargaining. Friday, delay. Sunday, guilt and promises about next week. He tried productivity apps. He created reward systems. He told friends about his goals. Nothing lasted. Because Daniel believed the problem was motivation. It wasn't. The problem was negotiation. His brain treated every commitment as reversible. Maybe tomorrow. Just this once. It's not that serious. And the moment something is reversible, it becomes optional. One evening, while researching focus and long-term discipline, Daniel came across the teachings of Dogen. He learned about a principle practiced for centuries in Zen monasteries: continuous practice without interruption. Not intense practice. Not perfect practice. Unbroken practice. In some temples in Japan, monks rise at the same time every morning. Not approximately. Not depending on how they feel. The bell rings. They stand. There is no internal debate. No discussion about energy levels. No emotional evaluation. Why? Because the decision was made long ago, and made publicly. When a monk takes vows, he does not say, "I will try to meditate daily." He declares who he is. "I am one who practices." That shift eliminates negotiation. Daniel realized something disturbing. He had never declared who he was. He had only declared what he hoped to do. "I'm trying to get in shape. I'm trying to be consistent. I'm trying to improve." Trying leaves room to retreat. Identity does not. There's a hidden mechanism inside the human brain. When commitments remain private, failure costs nothing but personal disappointment. But when identity becomes public, the stakes change. Status. Reputation. Self-image. Our nervous system still carries ancient wiring. Losing status once meant losing safety. Daniel understood that if he wanted irreversible behavior, he needed irreversible commitment. So he did something uncomfortable. He wrote a statement. "I am a person who trains every morning at 5 a.m. for 90 consecutive days." He signed it. He shared it publicly. Friends laughed. A coworker said he was being dramatic. His sister asked why he was putting pressure on himself. Perfect. Now the cost of quitting was no longer internal. It was visible. The next morning at 5 a.m., the alarm rang. His body wanted sleep. His mind began its familiar whispers. "You're exhausted. Start tomorrow." This is extreme. But something had changed. Quitting no longer meant skipping a workout. It meant breaking identity. And that felt heavier. He stood up. Not because he was motivated. Because he had removed the option to negotiate. The first 3 days were brutal. Day 4 was worse. By day 7, something subtle shifted. The debate grew shorter. Not gone, but weaker. Daniel realized something critical. Discipline is not built by intensity. It is built by removing exits. And he had just closed the first one. He didn't feel powerful. He felt cornered. But sometimes, being cornered by your own declaration is exactly what forces evolution. And what he was about to discover next would make the system even more ruthless. Because eliminating negotiation about commitment is only the beginning. The real battle was about time. The first victory Daniel experienced was not strength. It was silence. The internal argument that used to last 15 minutes now lasted 5. The resistance was still there, but it no longer controlled the outcome. He had removed one escape route. But another one immediately appeared. Every morning at 5 a.m., he showed up. Yet once he was awake, a new negotiation began. Should I lift weights today or stretch? Maybe I'll meditate longer instead. Maybe today should be a light day. The time was fixed. The action was not. And his brain exploited that freedom instantly. What most people misunderstand about discipline is this. The mind does not only negotiate whether you act. It negotiates how you act. Variety feels intelligent. Flexibility feels mature. But flexibility, when introduced too early, becomes instability. Daniel began studying more deeply into Zen structure and ritual practice. In traditional monasteries influenced by teachers like Dogen, form is not decoration. Form is containment. The sequence matters. The order matters. The repetition matters. In many Zen communities, the daily structure does not change depending on mood. The same hall. The same posture. The same chant. The same silence. Not because creativity is forbidden, but because consistency is protected. Daniel realized he had been changing his method every week. New workout programs. New meditation apps. New productivity systems. He wasn't failing because he lacked discipline. He was failing because he kept redesigning the battlefield. So he made another decision. He locked everything down. 20 push-ups. 10 minutes of seated breathing. 10 minutes of reading. Same order. Same timer. Same location in his apartment. No upgrades. No optimization. Just repetition. The first week of this rigid structure felt mechanical. His friends noticed. You're getting intense. Isn't this a little obsessive? You need balance. The comments bothered him more than he expected. Because part of him wanted approval. Part of him wanted to appear normal. But he remembered something uncomfortable. Normal behavior produces normal results. And he did not want normal consistency. He wanted unbreakable consistency. By week 3, something surprising happened. The emotional resistance decreased, but boredom increased. His brain screamed for stimulation. This is pointless. You already proved you can do it. Mix it up. This was not laziness. This was identity withdrawal. His old self was losing influence. And it fought back through restlessness. There's a neurological reason repetition feels painful at first. When you perform the same action in the same context repeatedly, the brain begins shifting responsibility from the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, to deeper structures associated with automation. The more consistent the context, the faster this shift occurs. But the transition phase feels uncomfortable. Because during that phase, willpower is still required. And willpower feels exhausting. Daniel almost changed the routine on day 22. Not because he was tired, but because he wanted novelty. He caught himself mid-thought. That was the moment he understood something powerful. His mind wasn't trying to improve the system. It was trying to reopen negotiation. So he stayed with the form. Exact repetition. No variation. By week 5, mornings became quieter. Not externally. Internally. The alarm rang. His feet moved before his mind formed arguments. Push-ups began without a motivational speech. Breathing started without internal resistance. He didn't feel inspired. He felt automatic. And that scared him slightly. Because he realized something irreversible was happening. He was no longer forcing the behavior. The behavior was beginning to run itself. Then disruption arrived. He caught a cold on day 34. Old patterns whispered immediately. "You're sick. Rest completely. You can restart next week." This was always the breaking point before. An exception would appear. A gap would form. The gap would expand. And the identity would collapse. But this time, Daniel asked a different question. What is the smallest version of this practice that keeps it alive? Not perfect execution. Not full intensity. Just continuity. So instead of 20 push-ups, he did 5. Instead of 10 minutes of meditation, he did 3. Instead of 10 minutes of reading, he read 1 page. The sequence remained intact. No gap. The following week he traveled for work. Airport at 4:30 a.m. Hotel with no gym. Exhausting meetings. In the past, this would have ended everything. But now he had a fixed time and a fixed sequence. He did push-ups beside his hotel bed. He meditated sitting upright on the mattress. He read while waiting at the gate. Nothing was ideal. Everything continued. And that's when the shift became visible. Co-workers started making comments. "You're different lately. You seem sharper. You don't miss." The word that appeared most often was unexpected. Scary. Not aggressive. Not arrogant. Just consistent. Consistency at a level most people never maintain feels unnatural to those who cycle in and out of effort. Daniel understood something quietly. He wasn't becoming more disciplined. He was becoming less negotiable. But one final weakness remained in the system. Unexpected obstacles. The things you don't plan for. And those are the events that usually destroy even the strongest routines. What he was about to implement next would remove the last source of collapse. And once that piece locked into place, there would be no more resets. No more restarting. Only continuation. The final weakness in Daniel's system was not motivation. It was surprise. Unexpected obstacles had destroyed every previous attempt at consistency. Not laziness. Not lack of ambition. Not even distraction. Surprise. The flat tire before the gym. The late-night work emergency. A family visit. A headache. A bad night of sleep. Each time something unplanned appeared, Daniel was forced to decide in the moment. And decisions made under stress almost always default to comfort. He realized something unsettling. He had built a routine. He had built identity. But he had not built pre-decisions. So he studied how long-standing Zen communities survive disruption without losing structure. In monasteries shaped by teachers like Dogen, practice does not depend on ideal conditions. If the meditation hall is unavailable, they move to another room. If the bell cannot be rung, someone signals by hand. If there is noise, they sit within it. The environment changes. The practice does not. That was the missing piece. Daniel had been reacting to obstacles. He needed to pre-answer them. So he sat down one evening and wrote a list of everything that had ever broken his discipline. Travel. Sickness. Guests staying over. Exhaustion. Bad mood. Overtime work. Minor injury. Next to each one, he wrote a predetermined response. If traveling, bodyweight exercises in the hotel room. If sick, minimum version, 5 push-ups, 3 minutes breathing, 1 page reading. If guests are home, silent routine in the bathroom. If exhausted, same sequence, slower pace. If late from work, complete it before sleep, no matter the hour. No thinking. No evaluation. Just execution. He created a rule. There will always be a version. Never zero. This changed everything. Because decision fatigue disappears when decisions are already made. Before, obstacles drained him mentally. Now, obstacles triggered an automatic response. One evening, a project crisis kept him working until 1:30 a.m. The old Daniel would have said, "Tomorrow doesn't count." This time, he woke at 5 a.m. as usual. His body protested violently. He reduced the intensity. But he did not reduce continuity. 5 push-ups. 3 minutes breathing. 1 page. Sequence preserved. Identity intact. Around day 60, something profound happened. He stopped measuring effort. He stopped tracking motivation. He stopped asking himself if he felt like it. He simply moved. The alarm rang. His body stood. Push-ups began before doubt could form. Breathing followed without commentary. Reading ended the ritual. He was no longer performing discipline. He had become structured. And that transformation altered how people perceived him. A colleague joked, "You're like a machine." His sister said, "You never break your word anymore." A friend asked, half serious, "Don't you ever skip?" The comments carried a subtle tension. His consistency made others aware of their inconsistency. And that creates discomfort. People often call extreme consistency unhealthy. But what they usually mean is unfamiliar. Because most people are ruled by mood. Daniel was now ruled by structure. And structure does not argue. Day 90 arrived quietly. No dramatic celebration. No triumphant speech. Just another 5 a.m. Another sequence. Another completed ritual. But internally, something irreversible had occurred. He was no longer someone attempting to build discipline. He was someone for whom quitting felt unnatural. The identity shift was complete. Before, skipping required nothing. Now, skipping would feel like violating who he is. That is the real transformation. Not increased strength. Not improved focus. Identity reconfiguration. Here's the truth most people never confront. Consistency is not about intensity. It is about eliminating exits. Public declaration removed social escape. Fixed timing removed temporal escape. Fixed sequence removed tactical escape. Predecisions removed situational escape. And continuity removed psychological escape. There was nowhere left to retreat. When people say, "That's not normal," they are correct. Normal behavior includes gaps. Normal discipline depends on feeling ready. Normal goals reset every few weeks. But when discipline becomes identity, it stops being something you do. It becomes something you are. Daniel did not feel extraordinary. He felt stable. And stability at a high standard looks extreme to those living in cycles. The most important realization came months later. He no longer thought about the 90-day challenge. He simply lived inside the structure he built. No dramatic self-talk. No hype. No struggle narrative. Just continuation. And that is the true meaning of unbreakable consistency. When practice sustains itself. When discipline feels quieter than distraction. When stopping would require more effort than continuing. The transformation was not about becoming better. It was about becoming different. The inconsistent version of him did not disappear in one heroic moment. It dissolved slowly, through repetition without gaps. And that is the level most people avoid. Because it demands something deeper than effort. It demands the death of negotiation. The question is no longer, can you stay motivated? The real question is, are you willing to remove every exit until there is only one direction left? Forward.